Rob's Inner Circle celebrates 1 year of broadcasting on June 8th. On behalf of myself, podcast host Robert D'Alessio, podcast producer Jenny Duhame, and our technician on the show, Patty Saragosa, thank you to each and every one of the guests for having come on to our show. But most of all, we want to thank you, the dear audience who tunes in week after week after week and supports us. Thank you so much. Here's to Rob's Inner Circle. Happy birthday.
Cathy Mulroy. Now, I know her as Cathy, and a lot of people call her Cat. I knew her from when she was working with what was then Inco, and she was one, and I knew her in her capacity as being the first woman, or one of the first women, to go into the mining operations and not just be in the offices.
Well, it was really hard. It was hard, like I said earlier on, and the men didn't want us there, and the wives didn't want us there, and the company didn't want us there, and I was the second person in line, and I think they hired the first 10, 13 people, and that's how it went that day.
She's had to fight some really uphill battles. You can imagine being one of the first women working in the mine sector.
There were no sexual harassment laws, there were no stalking laws. The men could talk to you any way they thought they wanted to. Giving up is not in my makeup, so I fought.
Hi, I'm Cathy Mulroy, and I'll be the next guest on Rob's Inner Circle. Please stay right where you are. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this special edition of Rob's Inner Circle. It's our 1 year anniversary. And to celebrate this special occasion, we have a little something over here. So we're going to be popping this cork, celebrating with you our dear guests who have been on the show. I'm going to get back here. I don't want to mess on the computer. God forbid this spills all over the place. Type of thing that can happen to me, right? And we also want to thank each and every one of the audience members who tune into our show week after week, like we said in the introduction. So this is for Rob's Inner Circle. Congratulations. Oh, look at that. Beautiful champagne. Just bubbling there. While I'm here, I want to give a huge shout out to the producer of Rob's Inner Circle, Miss Jenny Duhame, and also to our podcast technician, Patty Saragosa. So this is from us three to all of you. Here's to Rob's Inner Circle. Everybody, thank you so much for making the show as great as it is. We have a really interesting guest tonight. You're going to be captivated. She's going to be really, really, really fun. Guys, I want to give a huge thank you to all of you because a lot of you don't know it. I went through something a little special. I got my vaccine, the COVID vaccine, and what happened, in spite of that, I ended up catching COVID. So I had a very, very rough couple of weeks. And to all of you who were out there, who encouraged me, who just, did me that little favor, you were all helping me out and getting the groceries and all that. I just wanted to say a huge, huge thank you to each and every one of you. So folks, I just wanted to say at the same time, you know what, I was a little bit reluctant about the whole thing. I didn't really believe it. Guys, I got COVID. And in spite of all of the precautions I was taking and all that, the mask, washing your hands and all that, take this seriously because this COVID actually exists. Anyways, we're back on our feet, we're back in black, and we're ready to hit the road. A reminder to you that the Daily Struggle sitcom web series is up and rising on the Rise Up TV channel on the Roku streaming service. And how can you watch us? Very simple. All you need is a Roku stick, and you can get this for as little as $30 on Amazon. If you prefer watching it on your smart devices, no problem. You can download the Roku streaming app on your smart devices, and you can watch our amazing show, Daily Struggles, on your smart devices. We want to give a huge shout out to our collaborator, our good friend, the one who's behind all of the merchandise that we have for Daily Struggles, Rob's Inner Circle, Noon Hour Out of the Box, and a special mention as well to Esther's Breeze. It is thanks to our collaboration with our good friend Vincent Gargano through his channel, 514brandingco.com. So you guys can go on there and check out all of our amazing merchandise, and you can get a lot of really nice things on there. We want to give a huge, this is like in French we'd say une mention d'honneur. So an honorable mention. There you go. I was looking for my words. I guess it's the emotion. It's the 1-year anniversary thing there. We want to give a huge word of honor here, a mention to our good friend, film director, Canadian film director, acclaimed Canadian film director, Mr. Jim Donovan. Congratulations to you, Jim, because your collaboration on the new disturbing true crime drama, Believe Me, The Abductions of Lisa McVeigh, hit a whopping #1 spot in the UK, Ireland, and Australia, and has now gone viral on TikTok. So, folks, you can also watch this amazing show on Netflix. Just before we go into our weekly ritual, I do want to mention that we do encourage you to go onto the Bobby Short Shorts YouTube channel, click on the playlists, go check things out. You want to give us some nice comments, you want to give us a thumbs up, you want to share, you absolutely want to subscribe to the channel, and better yet, you have to hit the notification bell, because that way, every time something new comes up, you will be the first to know. Folks, it's time once again to slip into our weekly ritual. This is when you let the steam come down. You take that deep breath. You sit down and relax and enjoy. Let us carry the loads. Folks, it's showtime. It is time to bring on our guest. Our guest tonight is an absolutely amazing lady whom you will all fall in love with. She's an amazing Canadian author. She's an activist. She's done so much for women's rights here in Canada. She's also the author of an amazing book that we will be discussing momentarily. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please help me welcome the star attraction tonight on Rob's Inner Circle, Miss Cathy Mulroy. Cathy.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I am absolutely fantastic. You know what? It is such an honor to have you on our 1-year anniversary show.
The pleasure is mine.
And you know what, Cathy? Now that we're on the subject and all that, and we're in the mood, where's that glass of wine you got?
Right here, Rob.
Cathy,
I got it.
From all of us here at Rob's Inner Circle to you, congratulations on all of your amazing things you have done and things that remain. That that all of the things that you were doing for women's right now that to this day remain. You have left your mark. You're an amazing woman, and we absolutely love what you've done. So this, Cathy, is for you. Cheers.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much.
Cathy, are you ready to hit the road with the show?
I am ready, Rob.
So, Cathy, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where exactly were you born?
I was born right here in Sudbury, Ontario, born and bred. My dad was a miner, hard rock miner for 43 years.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your childhood. What was it like? Because whereas some girls your age at the time, they were probably playing with Barbies and all that, but you had other things on your mind.
Well, I was an adventurer, so I'd always like to climb those blackened rocks we called mountains. I wasn't supposed to go up there, but that was one of my favorite spots to hang out.
Okay, so can you tell us exactly what it is exactly that drew you to climbing those mountains? And it's such an adventure for a young girl your age back in the day, and you want to be climbing these mountains and all that. Why?
It was almost like I was drawn to them, Rob. I just loved the Black Rocks. And then when I was up there, of course you could see for miles in all directions because there weren't any trees. There wasn't a living thing in sight. So, but it was calming up there, quiet. I liked it a lot. And I like to be by myself up there.
So that sounds like the perfect place to go up there and to get some inspiration, and you could probably write a book, write a
Oh,
song,
you could. You could.
yodel for all it matters, right?
That would take practice.
So, Kathy, tell us a little bit. As you were growing up, what were your aspirations? Did you want to be an astronaut? Did you want to be a doctor? Or did you want to be a specific kind of a doctor?
Well, when I was little, I always wanted to be a veterinarian. I was always taking stray animals home. I even brought a bobcat kitten home once, and my mom was not thrilled with that. But I never got to do that. I wasn't thinking of being a miner or a laborer when I was a child. That wasn't my dream.
Okay, so you are very knowledgeable about Sudbury and what happened like 1.85 billion years ago. So Kathy, take us back like way, way back. Tell us what it is that is special that happened in Sudbury. Is it a meteorite that hit? Is it a comet? Tell us a
Well,
little bit about that.
Well, they weren't really sure. Even today, they're not really sure if it was a meteorite or a comet. But there was this big, gigantic thing that flew through the sky, and it was 200 kilometers long, and it was 39 kilometers across, and it impacted the earth, and it made a crater, and it hit so hard that it went right to the core of the earth, which caused a tsunami, volcano eruption, and all those precious metals bubbled up. And that's where it sat for a long, long time.
Okay, so if we compare the Sudbury from your childhood days to what Sudbury is today, what is the difference?
Black and green. It's like black and white, except it's black and green.
There's a lot of greenery right now.
Oh, it's beautiful. All the lakes are full again. The water is clean. We have about 335 lakes, and they're all clean. The earth is good. There's trees of all different kinds, animals again. So it's a big change than when I was a little kid.
Well, 50 years ago, NASA sent their astronauts John Young and Charles Duke in connection to Apollo 16. They sent them on a mission to study geology in Sudbury. What's that all about?
Because we look just like the moon. And that's true, we did. We looked just like the moon. There wasn't a living thing anywhere except people. But there were no plants or there were no fish or there was nothing. Everything was killed, destroyed.
Well, NASA also tested the Apollo 17 mission lunar on the moon. What is it? The moon rover
Yeah, the
in
moon rover.
Sudbury in
Yeah.
the latter year of 1972. So NASA was like part of Sudbury quite a bit,
Well,
right?
yeah, but that was sort of an embarrassment when you think
Ah,
about it. Here's
what
your
happened?
city being saying, "Oh, you look just like the moon." So that's something that used to be a log town, now being a black rock was embarrassing.
Okay, so if we go into your literary talents, at which moment did you discover that you had an interest for writing?
Well, I always liked to write when I was a little kid, but I couldn't spell. I've got dyslexia. So the teacher would say things like, "Oh, the content of your stories are really great, but because you've got 300 mistakes, I can only give you 50%." But I always liked to write. Yeah, I always liked to write.
Okay, so tell us, besides writing and all that, do you have other abilities? Like, give an example. Do you have some artistic abilities? Do you draw? Uh, is there anything else you do besides writing?
Well, during COVID, I found out I like doing crafts. So I have a whole bunch of pennies, which is kind of funny because I was in the copper end of everything, and now I ended up with these thousands of pennies, and I'm doing artwork with pennies and old jewelry. So I'm having fun with that.
Okay. We have a couple of complimentary videos with the show now that we didn't necessarily get to the subjects and all that. Maybe we can show a video and you can talk to us a little bit about what was going on over there. This one here, I believe, is about the Second World War, how women got involved and they were producing weapons over there. So let's take a look at the video and we could talk about this video right after.
Okay.
When the war was over, Inco laid off all the women workers. That's when I joined the Women's Auxiliary of the Union. We did for the Union what we had always done for the church and for our husbands. That labor of love, doomed to silence. And when we've broken the silence, we've been remembered with suspicion. In 1958, after 3 months of strike, we let it be known that our families just couldn't go on.
We feel that the sufferings and the hardships are getting to the point where they're unbearable. We want our men to go back to work.
Soon after, the men voted to go back to work. Without further explanation, we were conveniently blamed for the bad contract that they accepted from Inco. For 20 years now, history has remembered us as traitors and strikebreakers, the women of 58.
Cathy, that's an amazing video. So let's discuss that video a little bit.
Well, there was one just prior to that because a lot of these women worked at Inco during the war years. Okay, there was 1,400 of them, and they were doing all the jobs on surface, the same as the men, but all the men had gone to war. So these women, they had started the union, writing their, putting their membership together, and did all of that. And then when the men came back from the war, all 1,400 women were laid off. That's when they joined the auxiliary and that's when they became like, they were allowed to go to union meetings and all kinds of stuff with their husbands. But again, they were the people who did the coffee and the donuts and the sandwiches and all that kind of stuff for the union guys.
I have a funny feeling that you have a talent for not only writing books and all that, but could it be that you've written plays or you're looking into writing plays or maybe scripts for movies and all that?
Yes, I am. That's why I joined Toastmasters, to just to get better at what I'm doing, feeling more confident, and it forces me to write often when I'm in Toastmasters. So the same with, I have all these little stories now, and so then you never know, maybe I could put a play together one day.
Well, actually, you know what? Your book that you have out there, we're going to actually have a chance to be talking about a little bit later on in the show. On our show, we have some prominent film producers, we have film directors, and you know what? For those of you out there who are listening and all that, Cathy Mulroy has a great story to tell. Her book is absolutely amazing. I have not had a chance to read it, but as I was interviewing Cathy before we got the show going on over here, she was telling me all about the book, and it is an absolutely amazing book. Folks, if you want the definition of courage, the definition of perseverance, definition of a woman who's strong-willed, who did not back down for anything, this is the type of book you want to own. So, Cathy, now that we're on the subject and all that about your book, tell us what your book is called.
It's called My View from the Blackened Rocks.
Okay, and where did you get such a title, and why did you choose such a title?
Because what we talked about earlier, my view when I was a child, that's what I looked at. And I remembered sitting up there and just sort of being a little kid. And when I wrote the book, I wanted people to know that this is my view. This is how I saw my life working as Inco as one of the first women.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, as usual, we do encourage you if you have any questions for our guest tonight. Tonight's guest is Cathy Mulroy, an absolutely amazing lady. She's got a great story to tell. She's been an activist. She's done so much to help the women's movement in Canada to make things better. So, folks, if you have any questions, do not be shy to ask Cathy your questions personally, of course, as you know, we have a habit of doing here. Cathy, before you wrote this book over here, actually, what is your first literary piece of work that you put together?
Well, the first time I wrote a story that got published was this book here called Mining Town Crisis. Can you see that?
Yes,
There
we
we
see
go.
it. Yes, we do.
There we go. Okay, and I got a chapter in there. That was my first public yeah, so I'm really happy about that one. And it was edited by David Leadbeater, who was a professor up at Laurentian University.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you wrote in that piece of work?
Well, I picked one of my favorite stories. And is that what you'd like to hear is my favorite story?
Well, I mean, we can go into some kind of a little bit of detail now that what that writing is all about, so the audience has a chance to discover what it is that you wrote in there.
Okay, well, being one of the first women at Inco and being only 19, it was really difficult, first of all. So the men that were on my shift, one day they broke into another shift's locker, and there was full of these hustler magazines. Well, I had never even seen a Playboy magazine, let alone a hustler magazine, and they were completely awful. And the men were like in shark frenzy eating. They were like yelling and screaming, and the books were flying, and they pasted those huge pictures all over the wall of women with their bodies showing everything. And it was really uncomfortable. And so I went to the boss and I told him that I didn't like it, that I didn't think it was fair that they would be looking at these magazines while I'm in the room. And he said, if you don't like it, go work somewhere else. This is the culture here. Go ahead.
Yes, so that was the typical answer you were getting for anything, because anytime, and rightfully so, there were things going on there that weren't, as we say in our daily jargon, and that weren't kosher. But
Nope.
every time you would be reporting on all this and all that, you were all like, like driven away. It's like, you don't like
Yep.
it, get out
Yep.
of here.
Yeah, get out of my face. You're like a fly, get out of here. And well, I was really hurt. And then when day shift came around, I thought upper management might say something with all these pictures all over the wall. And I remember, now we're only in a small, small room. Our lunchroom was really small, 40 men and me. And nobody did anything about it. So one day, my mom asked me to go to the secondhand bookstore for her. So I drove her there. And while she was in the romance section, I was looking around and I saw these magazines on the floor. And when I bent down to check them out, they were all pictures of naked men. And all the men were like at their ready. So I said, that's it. I'm going to buy them. So I took the whole stack. And my mom met me at the cash and she says, Cathy, don't do that. You're going to get in trouble. I said, it's okay, Mom. It's part of the culture. I just want to be part of the gang. So I pasted my pictures all over the place and I hid them in the bathroom, right? So that nobody could find them.
That was pretty audacious, you're coming from, but you know what I mean, it takes, I'm choosing the right words over here, it takes courage to be doing such a thing.
Yeah, we have a different way of saying it at Inco.
Yeah, and I think I know exactly what the way of saying is too. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
but
at least we got rid of the pictures in the lunchroom. So, that's a win-win situation. They
Well,
can look at them somewhere else.
but you see, I was talking to you about a prominent film producer, our
Yes,
friend Teresa Picciano. She's from
yes.
Montreal. She is a film producer. There she is. She's saying hello to everyone. And
Hi, Teresa.
Teresa, tonight's guest, okay, and if we want, we can elaborate this a little bit later on or after the show, whatever, when we have a chance. Teresa's a
Okay.
good friend of ours. And tonight's guest is an author. She has an absolutely amazing and inspiring story, an amazing book that Cathy was saying that she would not mind at all turning into some kind of a movie.
That'd be
So,
great.
and Teresa Picciano is an absolutely talented producer here from Montreal, Montreal born. She's done a few films. Her film Mate and Date is one of the films that she's done. She's done a few. An absolutely amazing actress, great producer. Who knows? Maybe you two could hook up and make a movie out of your book.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
So, to all of you who have tuned in, thank you so much for tuning in to our anniversary show this evening. And our guest is Cathy Mulroy, a Canadian author with a huge story to tell. My God, time is flying by so much over here.
Oh,
Cathy,
is it?
listen,
Yes, it is.
listen we have a few pictures over here that we can show the audience, and maybe you can give us some kind of elaboration on them. You good for
Okay,
that?
sure.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with this one over here. Tell us what's going on here.
Well, that was the second day on the job. And as you can see, the boss is giving me a really nasty look here. This is from the Triangle. That's the Inco's magazine that they put out every month. Now, he's describing the proper lifting procedures. And that little wooden guy is broken right where his hand is. So I said something like, oh, I guess he didn't lift it properly, or some joke. And this is the look that I got. I wasn't supposed to say anything. And so that was day 2.
Okay.
These are the women that used to work at Inco that are now wives of the strikers in 1958. There were 900 of them.
Oh,
And yes, and they went to march on the Union Hall or to the City Hall, and the mayor put a stop to that. And that's that other one that we saw, the other film we saw. What happened in 58 was the wives were blamed for the men going back for a bad contract. But those 2,000 women that were at the arena were not wives of the strikers. There was only like 900 of them.
and take a look at this interesting picture. I
Oh,
have a funny feeling I may know who this person is.
yes, that's me in my coveralls. There's a story that goes with that, but the bosses thought my clothes were too tight. And so I got remanded for that one too. And as my hair, well, that was a Montreal thing. I was supposed to go get a perm, and I said afro. And so the Montreal barbershop did that to me. I couldn't even keep my hard hat on. It kept popping off my head.
So, what's going on in this
Now,
picture over
this
here?
is the anode, okay? And then on the anode, there are molds. You see those things? They're called anodes. And we
Mhm.
pick them up. They weigh between 550 to 600 pounds. And then they're put into that tank where it says crossing on anode is strictly prohibited. And
Okay.
that's a manual air hoist. You pick that up with this manual air hoist.
Okay. So we're going to show another picture, then we're going to go back into our conversation. And folks, by the way, go ahead and prepare some questions for Cathy. She's more than obliged to answer your questions. She's like I said, an amazing lady. If you wanted to know what was going on back in the mining industry, how difficult it was for women to actually survive in the industry, you can go ahead and ask your questions. So let's show another picture here before we go on to the rest of the conversation over here.
This is the corn roast. We When we got on strike in '78, Dave Patterson, who was the president at the time, wanted to try to bring the people together in solidarity. So we had so much corn. We fed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. We did that all day long, and so it was a really good success.
You know, if you pardon the pun, that looks
Oh yeah.
so corny.
Oh really?
Kathy,
Don't give up your day job, Rob.
I was actually planning on giving up my day job, but this is very encouraging. Okay, it's all right. All right. Kathy, listen, tell us what is it that, you wrote the book, okay? So you wrote the book. What is it that you got back in terms of the satisfaction? Um, did you get like a learning experience out of it? Did you get like a personal satisfaction? Is it as if you accomplished something by writing this book? What is your view on this?
My view on this is yes, it took me a lot of years, about 15 years, to write this book. Um, Throughout the times that I had with all the stress and the fighting, I got really, really sick. So it took a while, but then I finished. I finished the book. And what I got out of it was I'm not angry anymore. It's like somebody opened up a dam and all those horrible things that I went through for 30 years is all now part of a river somewhere. And I feel very proud that I wrote this book. I feel um, happy that I wrote the book. And there's other women that are more than likely going through the same type of stuff, and they've called me that have, after reading the book, and said, Kathy, I went through this. And then they tell me their story. And you know what? I think that it's good for everybody. And I want people to know how bad it was. I want people to know that.
Not long ago, we had a question that popped up. Maybe Patty can pop that up again for us. It's from, I believe, Laura DeRoche. She asks, "Were there? There we go. Okay, Laura DeRoche. Were there women's washrooms?"
Well, it took 5 years,
Oh my
five
God!
years to get a washroom in the anode department where we worked. And they put it in a place called the pig storage. Okay, so the men would always make fun. Oh, the women's bathroom? Yeah, it's in the pig storage.
Oh my
Well, we
God!
had fought for a long time trying to get a washroom in there. And then another woman came, Sally Matthews, and she really pushed, and we got the washroom finally in our department because we had to walk 4 departments away. And departments are big. They're not like
Wow.
little rooms, like there's train tracks and more furnaces and all kinds of things in the way.
Okay, Laura has another question here. Was the book healing, and do some of the men see how unfair it was?
Well, you know what? It's true. I go to a maintenance party every year where there's 1,500 men and
Oh.
5 women. It's still pretty equal. So I have a wonderful time. Merv picks me up and drops me off. I love it, love it, love it. And the men now that have read the book, you know what? They come and say things like, Kathy, I didn't know that was happening. Why didn't you come and tell me? Like as if they could fix it. Like you should have told us this. No, I couldn't. I couldn't tell anybody. And I think by them reading the book, I think that gives them a whole different perspective on who they thought I was. I wasn't always just a troublemaker. I was a person.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Hey, listen, Kathy, sometimes in our lives there are things, that change our lives dramatically. In your case, you became a mother and a wife at quite an early age.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
how
I
did
did.
you deal with that?
Well, not very well. I was 16. I was at the Blue Water Tower on Pearl, so people in Sudbury know what that's all about. I ended up getting pregnant. Uh, my family was Roman Catholic. His family was Roman Catholic. His parents and my parents sort of did the organizing, and I was told to be at the church high noon, May 1st, May Day, May Day. I should have listened, May Day, May Day, but that's okay.
Well, it almost sounds like a plane crash.
It was. It was not a good marriage. It was quite toxic, and we just didn't get along very well.
At a very young age, of course, there's a life changing experience like that happens to you. How about your parents? Were they supportive through all of this?
Through my Incoism, or
Well, actually, the fact that you were pregnant, the fact
oh
you have to get.
well, my parents were pretty good parents, so they said, okay, well, if he's going to marry you, then we'll organize it. And and then when I tried discussing the problems with either side, they had a different way of looking at things, like, oh, everything will work out, everything will work out. But it didn't work out. It was not a very happy time for me.
Okay, so you're saying that at one point you were you were working through the odd jobs here and there and all that, and all of a sudden, Prime Minister Trudeau comes on TV, and
Yes.
he comes up with the announcement that they're hiring at Inco, and that immediately caught your attention.
Yeah, women. They're going to hire women in hourly rated jobs. Well, it was like, I thought that the TV was talking like to me. You go and do this. So I went down the next day. Like I said, I was second in line and I got the job. I was 105 pounds, but I knew that if I could get on at this job, I could get out of the marriage. I'd have good money and great benefits. So that's why I went.
To the audience, again, thank you so much for your participation. Much, much appreciated. And for those of you who have asked your questions, thank you so much. We encourage you to keep asking questions. We still have time. We have an amazing show here tonight. Cathy, listen, tell us about your experience about working at Inco. And first of all, Inco stands for something. Is it an international?
International Nickel Company. Yeah.
Okay, International Nickel Company. Okay, so tell us what was it like working at Inco, because you're a woman, you're a small group of women, and you were telling me backstage that you were not encouraged under any circumstances the women to be able to get together. You were scattered all over the place, and this was
Yes.
purposely done
Oh,
because
for
you
sure.
know
For sure. Yeah,
it
for
is
sure.
much easier to have control on a certain group of troublemakers, keep
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
at bay and all that. So, how is it that you actually managed to work there all those years, and a lot of accomplishments over there? I mean, you were absolutely revolutionary, groundbreaking. You brought a lot of stuff over there, not only for the women's cause but also for the men. So, tell us
Yes.
about your experience at Inco as a whole. What was it like working there?
Well, I didn't mind the job. I mean, I loved casting copper and I liked doing this work. It was all the little extras that really didn't have to be, like the writing on the walls, Kathy is a pig, Kathy is a whore, all this kind of obscene phone calls, electrical staples in my driveway, somebody killed my cat, somebody was in my yard and cut up my hose, all these kinds of things. I slept with a shotgun under my bed.
Oh my God.
uh, you know, I mean, and then men would follow me. There was all kinds of things, but you got to read the book to get all the little details. Okay.
So okay, speaking of your book, where is it
Yeah.
that we can get your book? You can get it on Amazon,
Well,
right?
you can get it on Amazon. Yes. Yeah. And right now, I think it's gone down a few dollars because it was quite expensive on Amazon. But
Okay.
now it's about $25 or something, which is the same as what I sell out of the house with no tax. And it's still selling, like two here, two there. You know, we sold about we sold over 500 before COVID,
Okay.
and we had all these places that we were going to go to, like the big places like Timmins. Have you know where Timmins is? It's
Well, it's in
way up north.
Ontario. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a mining town, and Cobalt and Sault Ste. Marie and all those mining places. But right now, it's everything's on hold because of COVID.
Okay. So tell us what is it that sparked your interest in the first place to go into mining? I mean,
The
mining.
money, money.
The
It was the
money.
money. It was the money.
Okay.
That's no word of a lie. It was the money. Good money. Yeah, really good money. And and how I started to write was I had my first grievance. That's how it all started. And I met this guy Bruce McKagan, who became my best friend. And he wrote down, I, Kathy, have a grievance under the CBA, blah 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 blah. And then when we went to second stage, everything was all written down. So I thought, whoa, there's something in writing everything down. So anytime anything happened, I wrote it down. I wrote on cigarette packages. I wrote on napkins. I wrote on papers. I wrote on anything I could get my hands off. And I threw them in this big bin. And I had 30 years of collecting that stuff. I have diaries and calendars and you name it. I always written stuff down.
Kathy, I'd like to share with the audience maybe a few more pictures over here. We can go into some kind of detail. So,
Yeah, maybe the picture of the open hearth furnaces roasting beds.
okay, well, is this the you were talking about?
Yes, this is why the rocks went black. This is one of 81 roasting beds. And you can see by the size of the trains how big this was. So this is all the lumber that came from our lumber town, and they would put the copper ore on top of that. It would roast for almost 8 months, giving off sulfur dioxide. And then when sulfur dioxide hit the atmosphere, it became sulfur acid. And
Oh,
so it rained down as acid rain and acid snow and acid fog and acid air. If birds flew into it, they'd die right away. It killed off everything, all our lakes, our land, our water, everything in, I think it was 10,000 hectares was destroyed because of this open hearth furnaces.
okay. There's another interesting picture. What's this
Uh,
all about?
well, I decided to go back to school because I didn't have much schooling. And I got the Teachers of Adults course, the 4-year Teachers of Adults course at Cambrian College. And I got to graduate and I got to wear the cap and the gown. I was so proud, so proud.
Okay, with that graduation, you went on to occupy an important position at Inco.
I did.
So tell us
Yeah.
all about what you were doing there, because you were actually giving courses and classes to both men and women, and you
Yes.
bettered the working conditions for these people. So, well, first of all,
Yes.
what position is it that you got
Well,
from graduating?
okay, after I graduated, I became a first aid and CPR instructor, and then there were cutbacks. And then I landed a job called surface trainer instructor. And what that did was I taught people legislation, all the rules, the laws, and I taught them like personal protective equipment, everything from, hearing protection, eye protection, fall arrest, you name it, blah, blah, blah. And after a while, WMS, all those kinds of things that have to be taught every year. And then it was a little boring for a lot of the guys. So I decided to add on AIDS. So I wanted to talk to people about how to protect themselves. So one of the things I did was I put a picture of eyes up on the overhead projector, and I asked the guys, what's the most important personal protection equipment you could use? And of course, seeing the eyes, they said, oh, glasses. I said, wrong. And I pulled out some condoms. And
Ah,
I started explaining, how important it was if you're going to fool around to wear them and blah, 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 blah. And well, I was called in the office on that one too. The bosses, they said, we've got complaints, Kelly. I said, what? He says, well, you pulled out some condoms. I said, well, it's not like I asked them to try them on or anything, I just tell them how important it is to wear them.
it looks like you have a big fan over here, and she's probably from Ontario herself.
Oh, my
Sandy,
Sandy Mulroy. Yeah, that's my sister.
that's your
She's in
sister.
Ottawa. Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
well,
Hi,
yeah,
Sandy.
I was right about the Ontario part.
Yeah, you were at that.
Hey, tell us, was it always called the town of Sudbury?
When you asked me that, I looked it up, and yes, because what was the guy's name now? Hillary or something to that effect. His wife came from Sudbury, England, and
Oh,
he was superintendent of the CP Rail, and that's why they called it Sudbury because he named it after where his wife was from. That's how it became Sudbury.
okay. So tell us, what kind of minerals are mined at the Sudbury mines?
Oh, we got lots. We got nickel, copper, platinum, silver, gold, iron ore, and then there's a whole bunch of other ones that are precious metals.
You are so knowledgeable. So tell us, where do the words nickel and copper come from?
Oh, that's such an oh, when I started doing my research, I get excited even thinking about it. Okay, when they put the ore on top of those big roasting beds, and it was giving off this sulfur dioxide because this stuff was coming from a horrible, horrible, horrible metal, and that was killing people, was killing the men, it was killing the families, and all poisoning everything. And they called it nickel, which in German means devil copper.
Oh my God.
Cooper nickel is how they said it. And they called it that because it's got this poisonous gas. And to this day, it's still called nickel.
Okay, so the group Nickelback, is that where they got the name from the nickel?
Probably because they're probably from around this area.
You know, I realize I probably really bombed badly at that joke, so I won't say anything because no one noticed.
Okay.
So let's
We won't
keep
tell
on
anybody then. We'll just keep going.
keep on with the show over here. Cathy, what was the biggest challenge for you at the mine over there? Because you were faced with adversity every day.
Oh, all the time.
Go home if you're not happy. Then you had the man in your back, and you had a whole bunch of groups, everybody going up against each other. It mustn't have been easy to go to work.
No, it wasn't. But, I mean, it became my reality. I guess that's the way you got to look at it. That was my reality. You go there and you fight with whomever, if they call you this and call you that. Well, you got to learn to stand up and fight back. And lots of times if you swore at a guy, that sort of, they backed off. So that was one of my favorite words of all times there.
A favorite word of all times. I guess we
Yeah.
can't see that word on the air.
We
But
cannot say it on the air. It's not
Ca-
proper.
is this true, Cathy?
Yeah.
Do you
What?
swear? Do you swear?
I used to. I don't so much anymore because now it's not part of my life anymore like it used to be. But I do swear, and the grandkids, that just goes in one ear and out the other. But if Grandpa says it even once, they're shocked. Oh no, Grandpa says that. Oh, but Grandma says, oh, but Grandma always says that. Grandma says the F word, yes.
You- F word for what? For
Funny,
fun.
fabulous,
There you go.
first
Exactly.
person, all those fun
Well,
words.
looks like someone's part of her grandma over here. Olivia Morera.
Oh,
Thank you so much for
Olivia.
tuning in.
Hello, Olivia. How are you, sweetie pie? And Gabriel. Hello, Gabriel. Those are my favorite people. Yes, yes, yes.
I thought I was your favorite guy.
Oh, you're on the list.
All right. Cathy, tell us a little bit. At some point, Sudbury had become a free for all because some settlers just pop in there. They started cutting trees and they started doing whatever
Oh,
they want. There was no control.
no.
What was going on back then? How
Oh,
come
they
nobody?
they they literally raped the land. That's what they did. They came in with this attitude, right? And they just kept cutting trees. And throughout the winter, it was easier because they could drag it across the snow. And when the horses died, they just got two more horses, and they kept doing that. And then in the spring, it clogged up everything, all the rivers and the streams, never cleaned it up. And that's when the railroad came in. And that's the story that leads up to Inco, because this guy, Sir William Van Horn, he found this piece of ore, and he took it, and he knew it was valuable, and he put it in his office. Well, there was this other guy named Sam Ritchie, and he had bought up like 1,500 acres down in southern Ontario that was rich in copper and iron ore, and of course, lumber. Anyways, he was visiting Sudbury, and he spotted the ore on Van Horn's windowsill, and he pocketed it. Yeah, he stole it. So it tells you about the attitude that they brought. Well, and that was like in 1881. And so he bought up 1,500 acres before Van Horn knew about it. So it was crooked right from the beginning.
So tell us, you were telling me an interesting story that women were not allowed to go up and down in the elevator shaft to go down
Oh, it's
because
called a cage. It's called a cage.
it's a cage. Okay,
Yeah.
but there was some kind of a motivation behind that, which when you look back today, it's like totally ridiculous. So
I
tell
know, but
us,
it's really not that long ago. Like
yes,
women were only allowed to go underground in the 1990s. So some of the women that really wanted to go underground, because that's where the big money is, they weren't allowed because, you ready for this? Because it was considered bad luck to have a woman underground. So the mother, the Queen's mother, she went underground in 1939. And you know, at Fruit Mine, and they stopped production for a few months because they thought it was bad luck that she had gone underground.
uh,
Hello, hello, really?
I'm trying to think of the motivation and, like thinking back, and I have a hard time fathoming what the whole idea of the way of thinking was back then. You know what? Listen, I am a huge advocate of equal rights for women, for men. You do the job. You're a bus driver. You know what? If you're getting X amount of dollars, the woman should be getting you're doing the same thing. Your colleagues.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
and tell me about what is the whole ideology behind the whole idea that they wanted to separate the men and the women, women who were causing trouble, which in reality, all the women wanted was to have some equal rights, like things as simple as having a bathroom, for crying out loud.
Exactly. Well, they were hoping that by not doing that, that we would leave, that we would just quit then. Because that's like when you look at me, I was like so small, no education, married. So let's hire that one. She's not going to stay. Fool them.
So you actually stood your ground and you stood up to these. You know what? I'm not going to be afraid to say it. These people were bullies.
Oh, big time bullies. Yes.
And you know what? And nobody could do anything about it because if you would be complaining, you had no backing whatsoever. And it is so unfortunate. But you know what? It is because of women like you, because of people like you who stood their ground, that today it helped shape the way things are done today. Cathy, you know what? That deserves a toast. Where's your glass
Okay.
of wine?
I got my wine right here, Rob.
Cathy, to all of your beautiful accomplishments, and may they live on forever in Sudbury and all over the world. Cathy, here's to you.
Thanks, Rob.
Health.
Mm.
Oh man, is that good, eh?
Mm-hmm.
You're Irish. You're Irish. You wouldn't know anything about wine, right?
I am. Well, yeah.
Irish? No.
Yeah. Irish descent.
Irish descent. Okay.
I'm a Canadian,
Okay.
but
Like
we
me,
got like 6 generations here. So,
like me, I'm Italian. I wouldn't know anything about wine, right? I have no idea what's going on with wine.
oh, I love wine.
Cathy, to this day, which is the deepest mine? The deepest the mine goes in Sudbury.
Creighton, and it's about 9,800 feet now.
Oh my God!
They're going to bring it to the 10,000 level. And right now down there's a snow lab. And the snow lab is where they're looking at black matter and doing all kinds of scientific stuff about matter.
Not long ago, if we go back, I'll give you an example. If you take the word golf, golfing, Jack Nicholson and all these guys,
Oh, yes, yes.
what have you. Do you actually know what the word golf means?
I do now because you sent it to me. But you tell us, the
Okay.
rest of the world.
Okay, this is just to go back and show you what the ideology was all the way back then.
Okay.
Folks, for those of you who do not know what the word golf means, strap on your seatbelts. You're going to fall off your seats. Because back then, the women weren't allowed to do anything. They weren't allowed to get involved in any activity that was considered a man's activity. Folks, the word golf is actually an acronym, which means gentlemen only, ladies forbidden. And can you believe that? That is not long ago.
That's right.
And I can even take it as far as going to a tavern. Women were not allowed in a tavern, for crying out loud.
No, unless you had a guy with you.
Okay, so What was the whole idea behind that? So what? I mean, if you're alone, you have to have a guy. What's the whole idea behind that, Cat? You
Probably a
remember that?
control. It's all about control. We'll tell you what to think, what to do, what to wear, what to say. All that old kind of thinking.
Okay, so to go back to reiterate a little bit, you said that, and the only reason you were hired at Inco is because Prime Minister Trudeau comes up with that huge speech, and then all of a sudden you went and you were hired. But this was against Inco as well because they didn't want you there.
No, no, they didn't want the women there.
Okay, so what were the biggest issues that you had to face over there besides adversity? I know you didn't have your bathrooms and all that. I know the life was bad for you and all that. But was it all the women who were perceived as so and so, or was it Cathy Mulroy who had the projectors on her because she was the outspoken one? Was it the same for everybody, or was
I
it just
don't
for
think
you?
it was the same for all the women, no, because some of the women who was up in Levac, which is a small town, um, their fathers knew the guys that they were working with, so that was sort of helpful. And then some of the other women that worked in the smelter, they were allowed to work on the same shift together, so that really helped them out too. So when there's more than one, like a lone wolf, well then people wouldn't attack so much. But still, they did. Like there was one woman, she had just bought a brand new truck, and some guy took a hockey stick and stuck it up the rad and busted her rad. Like there were things like
Unbelievable.
that happening. Somebody stole a dog and took his testicles and wrapped them up in elastics and then shipped the dog back to her. There were all kinds of nasty things that went on to the other women too. I wasn't the only one. I'm just the one that was outspoken about it.
So, how many years did you spend at Inco, Kathy?
30 years. I did my 30 years. Yes.
Okay, so you retired, you got your full pension and all that.
Yes, sirree.
And you
Yes,
know what?
sirree.
This calls for a toast. Where's that glass of wine?
Oh, I'm getting
30
low on one.
years,
There we go.
30 years at Inco. Kathy, congratulations. You stood
Thank
through
you,
thick and
Rob.
to your health.
Which is good now. Yes.
Okay, so Kathy, what you left Inco after 30 years of work and all that. Do you have a sense of accomplishment? Do you
Oh,
think
yes.
that you did everything you had to do, or did you leave with a regret? You know what? Maybe I should have stuck around and I probably could have done this or that.
No. I got to tell you that little story about my dad. I was helping him take a shower, and he was like really getting up there in age. And he says, Kathy, the time is near. I'm going to die soon. And I said, Dad, what does it feel like to know you're going to die? And he looked at me with those blue gray eyes and he said, no regrets. And by him doing that, that's how I live my life. I've made mistakes. I've been mean to people. I've been kind to people. I've been everything else. I've made mistakes. But you know what? No regrets, because this is who I am. And that's all there is to it.
Okay, so Kathy,
Yes.
there's a lot of people who are facing challenges, not necessarily what you have faced, but there's people who are facing challenges and adversity and all that. Uh, as an accomplished um, activist, what is the advice that you could give to anybody out there who has a cause, who just is missing the drive, but he or she wants to make it happen? What is the advice you have to give to that person faced with adversity?
First thing I'd say, if you know you're right, don't back down. Whatever you do, stand your grounds. Believe in yourself. And the trick is know the laws and know how to use these laws, because there are laws. And if you know the laws, then you have ammunition. So knowledge is power.
Kathy, I have a bold prediction to make.
What's
Are you
that?
ready for this?
Okay.
Your book is going to turn into a movie.
Oh, I really hope so, Rob.
No,
I
no,
really do.
it is absolutely inevitable because with the audience we have here tonight, we have some pretty influential people who turned into Rob's inner circle, believe it or not. It's a 1 year anniversary show. We get around, you know.
You do. I know. I've been watching.
Someone is going to, you're going to spark the interest of someone, and we will be more than happy to hook you up with that given person and, may it happen for you.
Oh, I hope so. I think so, Rob. I think that we could do a lot more too. Like, I sent you some pictures of my files. I mean, my book could have been 3 times the size, and it's a big book. Where is it? There it is. It's a big book, but it could be 3 times the size.
And who's saying you can't make a mini series out of this if it goes televised?
Yeah, I could. That's just it. There's so much that went on that I couldn't put everything in a book, or it would have been like this big. Would have been bigger than the Bible.
Wow. And that's pretty big.
That's pretty big.
Cathy, you get
Yes.
the closing comment. Unfortunately, we've come to that awful time that it's time to sign out. So, Cathy, you get the
Well,
closing comment.
it's been fun. It's been fun, Rob. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Jenny, for inviting me. I've had a wonderful time. Congratulations on your year anniversary.
Thank
And
you.
I'm looking forward to seeing more of your podcasts.
Well, thank you so much, Cathy. That is so sweet. And we are honored that it is you who brought in our 1 year anniversary.
Oh, I'm so excited. Oh, I'm thrilled. I'm just so thrilled.
Cathy,
Yes.
we urge you to stay behind because, of course, we're going to be having our meet and greet at the end of the show.
Okay.
And listen, again, thank you so much to you. Thank you to the audience, everybody, for participating, for your questions and all that, for tuning in. Thank you so much. And here we go. Listen, look at this. Esther's Breeze. She's actually my co-host on a show that we're co-hosting that I'm about to give a shout out to. She says, contact Sergio Navarrete, who happens to be a Canadian filmmaker. So maybe you want to write that down.
I'm doing that as we talk.
Yes. Thank you so much, Esther, for your input. That is a wonderful idea. So you got that. Sergio Navarrete, right?
Yes, I got it.
We're going to have a bit of time to elaborate on that. So, Cathy, stay behind, and we'll be getting back to you in a couple of seconds.
Well, thanks again for having me. And Jenny, I hope we can get together soon, sweetie.
Thank you, Cathy.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was our guest tonight, Canadian author Cathy Mulroy, an absolutely interesting woman. Thank you so much for tuning in. We want to give a little shout out to a show I have going with my good friend Esther Brzezinski that I co-host with her every Wednesday. We got an interesting show coming up this Wednesday. It is between noon and 12:15. We have our show called Noon Hour Out of the Box. We have an absolutely interesting episode coming in this week, and it is called For the Love of Feet. So you guys don't want to miss that. As we sign off over here, and just to let you know, next week's guest is going to be Mr. Robert Katz. He's an author of a book, and it's based on quadriplegic journey, and the book is called Yes, We Can. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll be seeing you next week, same time, same place, same reason. God bless. Have a blessed week. Ciao, everybody.